DOT's. It's our flooding problem, so I guess we could be party to that. I'd have to.
Crossed into their easement, the state already had an easement there to build over their easement. So
I don't believe they had an easement. They're trying to obtain an easement.
This is one of those things that was built back in the 50s or 60s, they put it in, and they just put it in because it needed to go in. There was no easements put in place or anything like
I
that.
don't think there is an easement.
Yeah, we may have some culpability in this because of inspections and everything else, but you would think if flood mitigation is the top priority, anybody that builds a garage on top of the pipe would have some responsibility in this.
Maybe Rich can give us a clue. I don't think the DOT ever had an easement. You still shouldn't build over the top of the pipe whether you have an easement or
They
not.
may not know it was there. They may not have known exactly where it was.
I mean, if there was no restriction on record that they would know because you're an easement or something else, you know, it's kind of tough. But
Well, the pipe does come out at the other end, at the river, when that guy's driving, so he knows there's a pipe there.
all right, maybe we
Maybe he didn't know exactly where the pipe was. And I don't know who built the garage. Was it the current owner?
I don't believe it was the current owner, but I'm not 100% certain.
I don't know the answer to that either.
Maybe we can talk, get some background.
And the valve is one of those inline water, yes, that's why you need to get to the pipe.
Well, not really, John, but I don't want to belabor it. The backflow preventer on this one probably will be at the end of the pipe, at the river. But the DOT, I guess, in their infinite wisdom, wants to replace the whole pipe.
No, from what I understand, they're putting that one in at the sidewalk.
Okay.
They're putting that inside the, like, basically, they're putting a gigantic box at the street side.
Okay, I was-
in there, so the water's gonna come up to that valve and then stop, and so it won't come up out of the, vent.
So is there an action
They're
there?
quite all the way down.
I don't know the answer at this point. Councilman, I don't know the answer.
And they just put the one on the end, and then they don't have to touch the pipe. Solve all problems.
We talked about it with them. I think they want to replace the whole pipe. You know, and they probably want to get an easement because they don't have an existing one, so that they can maintain it and do all the things that they want to do. But I'll ask Roger and Rich to get involved to a
Did we
certain.
ever get any forward motion, or did anybody ever look into the issue with, the sewer pipe over by Donovan there? The additional, the cost that was involved because somebody else screwed up?
Well, we are waiting for a report from our engineer that did the project. I saw him the other day. He was with Jack and Councilman Booker. He said he's going to get us a report on that.
Yeah, I don't think there's any, some kind of recourse that we can get there for the cost, trying to reduce all that cost.
I don't know if he's entirely sure that it was their complete problem, but if we can, we will.
One more thing, it's not our project, but what's the latest on the bridge? As far as timeline?
The sign's going up.
They did post a phrase on the county website, and I shared one on the public relations one that they're starting to arrange for sale. So there's signs and other things that will leave the stage, so if you want to look at this all those things.
So a couple boxes get built,
Their problem really, as they explained it to me, is Joe Attore, their engineer, the county's engineer, explained it is once they awarded the contract, then they entered into the main contractor entered into all the contracts with their subcontractors. They all had to be approved. All those contracts had to be approved from the feds as well, because it's a transportation and trust fund. So it's just a lot of paper. And that's what's kind of been holding it up, according to Joe. But they called about putting up the signs.
So much for the ground,
Hollander,
So they're working on the Robson side, taking off trees and stuff, and some of them are gonna cut down, and the others are gonna say, "Oh, if you drive
There's a
there."
couple really big trees there, I see it.
I hope they can keep pushing it. But they are doing that.
Really do love this tree.
I see our police chief and fire chief present, so next up will be a public safety update.
Chad, you go first.
All right, fire chief is up first. Do it.
Real quick, just to close out 2021, we did 493 calls, which is about 100 shy of what we did in 2021 school year. We're still maintaining that really good, in my opinion, response time. Our total response time is just over 4.5 minutes. That includes all the mutual aid we do. In town, it's just under 2.5 minutes. And just to reiterate, that's from the time that you call 911 to the time that you get a fire truck in front of your house. 2021, we offered 570 hours of training, which total to just under 3,000 total man-hours of what these guys put in for training collectively. With that, we did over 50,000 hours of people in the firehouse for the entire year of 2021. I was going to ask about the Dunkin' Donuts bill, that was still on the table, but I think you guys just answered that question. The training, Joe, I don't know if you've heard.
No, I'm not.
And then the one item for discussion on the fire side is we are looking to acquire a new Army vehicle from the Borough Deal. Borough Deal 4 years ago acquired a vehicle that they decided wasn't going to suit their needs. It'll replace the current Deuce and a half down there, which we can auction off, which is currently sitting out of service because of broken blood vents on the one front axle. It's in 1995 compared to 1972. It's in a much better condition. We had one of the county mechanics go down and evaluate that deal. It's a perfect deal. We do batteries in it, which I think I can transfer the batteries that we just put in that one. So I want to see the cost there. I also want to get them out to the county, and because that one has that big evacuation box, transfer that over, and then that would get the town with the OEM truck plus that one to our evacuation vehicles. It's no cost. It's just a matter of paperwork transferring them together. So Deal approved it at their council meeting on last Wednesday. And then I'm going to give the information to Chris today, have a resolution for you guys to sit down to.
So there's no initial back.
It's just a matter of transferring from one side.
And then you can get rid of the.
That's going to go to auction. I would like to transfer the box, which will cost, but I can pay that out of my budget to have the county transfer the box from one truck together.
Chad, let's see what kind of parish that you can do.
No, so like I said, we use the county public works to do all of our high water vehicles, things like that. So we have a kind of a good rapport, and he went down there and did an evaluation. The only thing that truck needs is batteries, but we just put batteries in this truck last year.
Yeah.
So I'm confident that I can transfer that battery out to this, and then we launch that, we'll launch out with that. It runs, it just needs jump.
And thanks to your department for a successful 2021. Congrats getting your response. That's pretty good. Fairly good. Cool. Thanks, Ed. Chief.
Good morning, everybody. Good morning. This is the first time I've been here in, 2 months last? I think we missed last one. We were all at the county doing our updated for the AG guideline policies. That's where we've been. Missed the last few meetings. I don't have a lot to talk about publicly in the executive sessions. I have a couple things I want to go over, but just some of the stuff that we have done. We do have a couple investigations going on right now with some thefts. We have had some car thefts in the area, but it's not really just Seabright. The whole county is getting hit hard with motor vehicle thefts. We're pretty lucky. There's only one way in and one way out. Monmouth Beach, Rumson, Fairhaven, Little Silver. Every night we're chasing cars everywhere. Probably 99%, I would say, the keys are left in them, the fobs are left in them. You put pixels out, you put the signboards out, take the keys out of your car. And we're not even chasing them at this point. We're letting them go to the parkway, they're recovering them up in North Jersey, and from there they're going wherever they go from there. Some of the other stuff we're talking about, we do have our body cams, we don't have them on right now because what we did go into service on January 1st. They're working out pretty good, right, Chad? Yeah, no problems yet. If you guys have gone around some bridge, Pearson's have been there almost every single day with their engineers. There's engineers everywhere on that bridge, both sides. So there's a lot more activity than I've seen, especially today. What else? John is already working on the parking and the parking kiosks for coming up here. We're already working on the parking lot. We talked about parking passes. I know we have to talk about the increase for the years itself, but I know it sounds like it's far away. It's not that far away. It comes up on us quick. And one thing you guys know, we can have everything ready by May 15th, and by May 15th, it gets turned on and the system crashes. It always happens. There's so many things involved, but we do need to really get on that and make some decisions. What are the parking passes, in which lots we're going to use, which lots we're going to be allowed to use. Joe knows some of the stuff that we're talking about right now. We can talk about in executive session or another time. Also, the other day we had a snowstorm. It was only a couple inches. Sean did a great job. I know I was working with Jim and John that day. There really was not any kind of issue to where we needed to go and write everybody a ticket if they didn't move their car immediately. It wasn't that much snow, it got moved pretty quickly. We are allowed to really use some discretion if Sean had a big problem getting through. We know what we're doing, it's a snow ticket. I felt like last year we had some issues where we wrote a lot of tickets, and by the end of the day, the judge dismissed most of them because people were in Florida, people were sick, people had COVID, people were elderly. Some of the properties, we don't even know who to write the tickets to in some of the sidewalks. So we did run into some issues. I have spoken to Brian about that. We'll talk about that in the next big snowstorm. Just writing a blanket, every single person in town just doesn't seem to work. It's a lot of work for us. Right? I don't know how you guys feel about that, but just,
Yeah, thanks for using a little discretion on that one.
yeah, we need to make sure we use certain discretion. Like I said, there's so many people just couldn't get out the shovel. If you have anyone who shabs and the trucks go by, sometimes they get this high and it's wrong to stop. People just can't do it.
Chief, I appreciate the fact that you're using discretion, that you're not just snagging people, because that's not,
It doesn't work for us, it just doesn't work. And it seems
somebody abuses it, somebody,
we understand.
Part of the issue is that, I agree with your discussion, and I completely agree with the action that she took there. But we've had some, the residents in town just fought on it, frustrated, because it's not getting done, because cars aren't getting moved. And that's why it's all came up. And it's just ridiculous. I don't see the reason for complaint, because like you said, it was a big storm.
And usually,
But this is why it all came up at the first place.
and I'm on the phone with Sean that day, me and Sean talking all day long. If Sean has an issue, we'll be out there. I didn't have an issue, Sean knows what he's doing, so we definitely have it down.
As I said, kudos to you guys for taking care of it.
Also for notice too is, I know we wrote Angelica, there's a lot of tickets in the past few weeks. This was a nightmare with the fire things up there, this and that. So if you see now, everything is gone off that front sidewalk.
Technically, that's because they're closed.
Well, they're way back open, they've already reached out to put some more tables and stuff out there, so they have to go and get their permit again. I know myself and Tom Hagy have been involved with that. That alleyway is just packed too, so it's something we have to work on. I don't think they're gonna have that outdoor dining anymore, right? From the Ocean Avenue?
That's the question.
Yeah.
No,
Maybe not a lot.
the extension, will that happen?
Oh, not with the street.
Ocean Avenue, we don't know about that yet. Oh, we'll talk
Well, you
about
can decide whether to put the permit or
that.
not.
Yeah.
No, I mean, in the street, I don't know if the DOT will allow it again this year.
No, in the street, I think it's a sidewalk. Yeah, it's the street thing, then.
So then they go back to the regular sidewalk ordinance.
The big issue there is how much that sidewalk. So, not just for Angelica, so.
Everybody.
Everybody else.
Yeah, that's a good point this year for sure.
And they take full advantage of us. They take full advantage of us. They pack as much stuff out there as they can. And
They're trying to make a buck, I get it.
we ask them to make up figures and what it does. Plus, some other complaints I can talk about at executive session, but we don't know.
You didn't work on the employee line. That's
That's one of the budgets.
Was that John?
The employee lot that we use from Scribbles.
There's a cost involved in that last year with renting a fence So if that's a go, I'm gonna throw that in our budget request.
I would make sure you do.
Right.
At least I consider it. Yeah. We don't know the status of any of their projects, so, but I would think that even if it starts to proceed, they have a lot of engineering to do. I don't think anything would happen this summer.
Now we have a use in that lot this year.
Right.
Well, they haven't proposed anything yet. So,
Right.
I'm just showing that's a fence along the river.
yeah.
Correct, so, and it also raised an issue last year with a resident. Were you involved in that?
I wasn't involved, but Roger handled it, the size of the fence, and it was only.
So we're good.
It wasn't permanent, it was temporary, we were fine with that, but.
Somebody could put the height of the fence and the placards on the fence. You know.
Actually, yeah. All right, we're up to the short-term rental discussion. I know, I guess, Kanye presented.
He gave us some potential ordinance that he drafted for us to consider. He also gave us a memo that talked about the fees that he's recommending. And I don't know if anyone had a chance to really read the ordinance in earnest, but if you did, I think we should at least make sure that it fits your goals. And as Tom has been saying, that he's recommending a $300 annual fee, and then some.
Well, he also says in here, he's saying annual fee $300, but, he also says that a lot of it's for summer, a lot of stuff that he mentioned is specifically for summer, and it's just stated he rents out all year round. So I think we should, I don't have a problem with a once-a-year annual fee, but some people aren't going to use it, they're annual all year round, so I'm going to do it for summer. So I don't know how to, I don't know if it should be an annual thing, I think it should be a seasonal fee, like if you're gonna do it year round, there's 4 payments. If you do it one season, it's just 1 payment.
But if you're doing it annually, it's only one payment anyway.
Yeah, well, it's 1 payment, but it's basically 4 seasons, So basically, whatever it is, should be divisible by 4.
Maybe we can commit to really making notes on this and at the next workshop. Let's make some decisions as we have.
You
Kick it down the road. Yeah.
There, not if you want to limit vehicles.
Yeah. Yeah, these 3 things, the three things that you noted.
Oh, I wrote it on there.
Yeah, no, the 3 things that are noted on here are absolutely must have.
This is from Monroe Township in Pennsylvania, so is this New Jersey laws?
So I'd have to do a diagram, and there's a few things I questioned, in terms of occupancy limits on rooms, which, that's covered by other codes and the state mandate, so I don't know if we can superimpose something for short-term rentals on occupancy limits like that, because it's still covered by, yeah.
My main question is, are we trying to gain revenue by the fee on this? Or are we attacking the right problem by?
I personally don't think it's a revenue grab. I think it's more so just lack of a better word, control. Control system that could very easily spin out of control.
The Chip and I talked about having a low fee for your application so that people will comply, so that and a higher fee for violations. So, the fee for application, we just want to know who's in there, we want to have the rules and regulations, we don't want to generate real revenue out of that, and pay for Tom's time. But other than that.
We're trying to make sure everybody's doing things properly, they're doing it, they're taking they're following the legal route that we set in place, we set a guideline, that we know who's in these properties, who these properties being rented to. Because that's one of the things right now, we have no idea who these properties being rented to, and for all we know, could be a bunch of teenagers that mom and dad rented the house for the weekend for them, and then walk away. But we want to try to avoid that type of situation. 'Cause I know the chief doesn't get a lot of complaints, but as Erwin mentioned yesterday, when during one of our committee meetings, that, you know, when he was around campaigning, he got complaints all the time. I get complaints from neighbors, you know.
It's been on the agenda a few times, and a lot of people haven't been showing up to voice their opinion. The chief too.
It's the typical thing, it's like, it's that, it's just, Hatfield, I don't want to start Hatfield versus McCoy with my neighbor. I don't want to, you know, I don't want to throw my neighbor under the bus because I have to live next to my neighbor. And if heaven forbid, I throw my neighbor under the bus, I want to rent the property. And my neighbor throws me under the bus, and then it just gets a night on the situation. So it's one of those things it's one of those situations that I mentioned yesterday that, you know, our residents have voiced this issue and this concern with us. It's our job to put a bad guy. And without playing the bad guy, do it diplomatically to the point where everybody, if nobody's happy, everybody's happy.
If, are we able to put restrictions on short-term rental, like less than 30 days? We cap it at 7, or is that even a possibility, or is it only short-term rental, is the definition of all 30 days of rental?
30 days is 30-day limit is one you see in a lot of these short-term rentals, is 30 days. So yeah, you can make restrictions based upon 30 days or less. I think that's pretty well accepted. I mean, you do get to a point where you can't, there was an old case in Belmar where they tried to limit rentals to, they couldn't do it for less than a year, the court threw that out. Right. But 30 days, I think are pretty safe.
So we're trying to avoid like a transient hotel situations because that's where the most problems occur, like a 1-night rental, 2-night rental, where a party comes in for the night.
Right.
So,
But we basically just want to know who's the responsible party in that house. Who is the responsible party that owns the house? Who's the responsible party renting the house? So that if there is a situation where somebody says, hey, party's getting out of control, chief, look it up, pull out a number, call, and say, all right, get this under control, or we're going to take away. And then there's the threat of taking away the ability to do that. You know, X amount of.
But somebody's still gonna have to call us.
Right.
yeah, somebody's gonna have to call.
I mean, they are still gonna have to call us.
Right.
Even if we know the person and they, you know, complete our guidelines, I don't think we patrol for that, so it's.
Well, that's the other thing too, is like we can't, right now we don't have anybody watching the internet for postings.
This ordinance also specifically calls for a single family residence. Like, so say Joe registered, but what happens if the house was owned by LLC? That would be not a single family residence, it would be owned by process, so they wouldn't have.
There are a few of those.
Well, I think that was when you said it there, and I didn't correct, obviously, from some of that way. I mean, they're probably talking about the structure, not necessarily the owner, right? You know, a single family residence owned by a person or by an LLC, or by whatever.
The whole point is, even if it is an LLC, we need to have a point person that we can call 24 hours a day, that we can say, okay, you gotta get it under control, or you got gas in, or, you know, whatever the situation might be. We have to have that point person that we can call that who's responsible for that property, both renting and owning. Because, you know, I mean, if something happens, it's all a matter of covering our ass in the event of a catastrophe. You know,
Well, if we have the, if we can show the event, something went south, if we can show a paper trail that we did everything we could, we designed protocols and we want to follow is one thing, but we can always say that there was a plan in place and that'll protect us in some regard if there was a bad thing that happened. So.
because the whole thing is we don't want to have something happen and then now the Monday morning quarterbacks come out. Well, we've been complaining about that for years and blah 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 blah. It's like, well, who have you been complaining to? You know, but that's the whole thing. We want to give people an avenue to say, okay, here's what this. We want to just make sure that it's being done properly and everybody's safe.
As Joe said, we've discussed last time, but, basically sitting at people complaining, whether it's a homeowner or a renter, it doesn't matter.
Right.
People don't put more complaining, and there's not a whole lot of people right away.
What's the next step on this?
I think our next
You'll
meeting,
get comments.
the next meeting, we should take this ordinance, we should comment on it, and you tell us what you like in it, what you don't like in it. Maybe think about a fee for registration, a fee for a violation that's appropriate, that we can do.
How would we enforce any of this? Like, we're not going to be scouring the internet ourselves. Like, who would, Tom Hague would check the internet every once in a while if someone's in violation of.
I think we have to start developing a list. We don't have one, and I think the initial is, the VRBO and Airbnb would go online or just look under
Seabright.
Seabright.
Seabright rentals, just like the Seabright rentals, if something comes up that's not on our list, they get a violation, if it's,
I don't know. Is that hard? Can you do that? Make a violation for just advertising?
Well, you could make it, to the extent that they are advertising for short-term rentals and don't have a permit for it, well, you probably have to prove that they actually did it, right? That they actually did do it, so you have to.
The advertisement, you can do a violation for the advertisement.
Yeah, I think they would act like a rental. And that's just sort of a hypothetical thing, right? But it gives you the starting place to know what property to look at. Because the property that says, hey, we're doing overnight rentals, and they know which one to look at and see if it's part of the
Just for the advertisement, I don't think it's.
Yeah, I don't know that you could do it for advertising.
if you're advertising, you're planning on doing it.
If you haven't committed an act yet,
Then you get definitely an argument of, selective enforcement. Like, it's not the same, but there could be 20 ads to see right at any one time.
Right. So just a couple quick comments on that, and further discussion is good. I think this is a really important topic for us, because this is something that's going to be on the upswing. It's not going to go down. In general, I think it's actually a good thing. I think having rentals is a very good thing. I heard Joe talk about it before. I did read what was provided. I think for the most part, the framework was good. I think it is critical we have more discussion about it as a group. Kevin mentioned yesterday in the administration committee, we talked about code enforcement and ordinance enforcement. I think that's going to be a critical element of this, because we have to be able to enforce it in place. And I think being able to, that's going to be key. I've gone on the internet and tried to actually rent nightly here for this very reason, and you can. So people are renting on a nightly basis now. And from what I've heard walking about town, I think the general consensus of all of us is, and most towns have actually done this, if you get away from nightly rental, it's generally a good town, because it changes the clientele to some extent. So I think whatever we do, we should do something that lengthens the stay, like other towns have done, 1 week, 1 month minimum, and have a way that we can enforce whatever we want to enforce. And I think this is so important of an issue, sitting down, rolling across the weeks and discussing it. Because the summer's almost here, we may have an issue with people who are already renting nightly. What are we going to do in those cases? And we may not be able to get it into effect until next year. So that's also good.
I've also looked at Mount Beach, Long Branch, Deal, Asbury Park, every single beach town down the block. You can do 1 week, but they have living regulations for 1 or 2 night stays.
They do?
30 days. They have 1 or 2 night stay regulation, but they can't stop a short term, as in they didn't want to limit it for 7 days. You could do rums on the
Yeah, I think 1 week is a better minimum. I don't think 30 days, I guess, too different, especially for short time, there's no rent or home for 1 week per house.
They also, like other towns have several hotels. We have one hotel in town that's been down for the last few years, that's going to be reopened this year. Also, so that may help some transit.
And just to go back to something Kevin said, Jack and I heard quite a few people in town complain about this. And they admitted that they did not want to report it because they did not want to have a problem with the neighbor. And I think in some cases, they even reported when people rented for a week, the parents took the place for the whole week, the kids were there for the weekend, and the rest of the week was not occupied. So we may not be able to fix everything, but I think we want to get in the box.
Yeah, that's the issue right there. Parents are making kids, and those responsible adults there, adults.
All right, so any comments you want, we'll get on the next agenda. Third, both out sometime. soon. All right, so we're on to number 4. This is for public beach events discussion. I know we already have lockers and so forth on public beach.
We've been talking about this for a while, but Councilman Catalano asked me to put it back on the agenda to see if there's a general consensus whether we want to do it or not. The idea came up when we looked at Long Branches. They have some cabanas there. They generate a significant amount of revenue, and you know, they were well received there. Here we have a couple of issues we have to deal with. One, if you want water and electric to the site, we need a CAFA permit. Greg was involved in the CAFA permit process to do the basketball court. We needed a CAFA permit to build the basketball court. And unfortunately, and I'll ask Greg to, you know, reiterate, CAFRA bases their permit fee on the size of the lot.
Right. The overall size.
The overall size of the lot. So we have a 17-acre piece of property out there that the CAFRA permit at the time was,
I forget what it was a lot of money.
it was a lot of money. So what Greg recommended we do is subdivide the beach so that there's just the water and electric are called permanent structures. So you need a CAFRA. You actually don't really need one for I don't think we do, for the temporary cabanas. But you do run the line all the way down to all the lockers, wherever you choose to put them. We actually even have conduits that we prepared for this when they were building the seawall. So we have conduits that go through, so we can, if we ever wanted to, we can run water and electric to the east side of the seawall. But it's an expensive initial expense. But do we have the desire to make that happen, even if it's not going to happen this summer? Do we want to talk about it and go forward? I had the budget somewhere. I should have brought it when we looked at it before of what it would cost. You know, Sean looked into unfortunately, because it would be a public construction project for the cabanas and everything else. It's going to exceed our bidding limits, so we have to bid it out. It have to be prevailing wage, and it have to be all of those. I don't know that we can put that. What do you thought?
And Sean built it now.
I was going to say, that means Sean.
Yeah, that'd be kind of a big undertaking, and I don't know that we could. I don't know that we could do any volume of it. You know, we built 2, probably. You know.
You may make sure, are these going to be permanent structures or?
No, they come off the beach.
And how do you know where we store?
We'd store right next to the lockers where we're storing the lockers now, on the west side of the wall.
Like a beach club, too.
Yeah, I'd be interested in the financial analysis. I'd want to see what's our upfront cost, what kind of revenue can we get, what's our break even, that kind of information.
I think I can have that for you relatively quickly just by calling the loan break.
Joe, just to give you a quick update, before the pandemic, it was around $75,000 to $8,000 per unit, purchase-wise. If we were to purchase each unit, it was an 8x8 or 8x10. Long Branch gets $3,000 per unit to rent it out for the summer. Those costs have gone up substantially, so that's all cost. So you can probably double that cost now per unit.
I think looking at the numbers would be good, but the risk reward ratio does not seem favorable. Because you got to put infrastructure in place. If you get storm damage, you got to replace it all. Otherwise, they become obsolete. And if the things last 4 years, the numbers don't work.
Well, that would be all part of the analysis. Is you know, it's all of the above, and then before we make a decision like that, we can look at everything. You know,
And there's the ancillary questions of if you rent a cabana 1 year, does that give you a rate next year, or do we do it the way we do the lockers, where it's first come first served? You know, you have those issues that
other towns have figured that out, but I think Erwin makes a good point that there's a financial side of it, and then there's what's required from an infrastructure perspective to make it all work, and what's the shelf life of those improvements and all of that stuff. So
are we willing to look at those things?
Yeah, I think we should actually have numbers in front of us for
It's not the same thing as we do with paid parking. We look at all the costs, we have a lot of kiosks, we have the mining, all that stuff, so we all have it, is that fair together?
I mean, the beach makes the most money for the town, so having like the vans makes a lot of sense.
I agree conceptually, but with anything else, we need to see what we're getting into. I suspect it may make sense even after all of that, but seeing it is important.
How difficult would the subdivision be?
Not very difficult to plan, just getting it through CAFRA.
Sorry?
Just getting it through CAFRA is really a time thing, but it shouldn't
Well,
really.
that is, it doesn't matter what we do, that's gonna be an issue regardless, so.
But plans and then getting it prepared are easy. It's just, doing it like CAFRA.
What other beach towns have public vans?
Elmhurst has them, they've had them we've been engineering for a long time, they've had them for at least the last 4 years. And they take the same thing, they have the infrastructure out there permanently, they take construction on and off, they've been filled every year, it's very rewarding.
So they've had it for 4 years?
Yeah. And they've replaced them during storms. The infrastructure that we've had, the seawall there was not damaged in the last hurricane, so then it was just more cleaning out the infrastructure more than replacing it. So the cost there will go through difficult. But everything you put in is plastic, so it lasts forever, because everything originally when they were putting everything was metal, and that was, an every 5-year replacement cost. But they're sold out every year.
I think it's worth looking at the numbers, right, because we won't be able to fit any more cars in the lot, but if it's a money-making proposition for the vans themselves, it's probably better to buy it.
I suspect it will work, but I expect to see that, but we still don't see it.
It's also a cost reward for the people that use them, too. People that use them, that's gonna be a good benefit, because this is pretty great.
Yeah, I'm not going to have any trouble.
No, we don't have any issue, right?
All right, so
One of the other issues, one of the other issues is space. Because, as you can see behind me, our beach is slowly disappearing. And it does every time they put the sand there and then 3 years it's all gone again. And we're almost at the seawall now in front of, Unitide, or Edgeworth. Almost up to the seawall.
So a quick last question, do we have any issues with floating projectiles in case of a storm?
We do. We have, we've talked to all the beach clubs about anchoring them, if you recall, early on, and, there was a bit of right after the storm, a lot of the beach clubs, they ended up in the river, or they ended up in the condos across the street from wherever they were. Jack, I think you attended that one meeting with Dina and myself about anchoring them with all the beach clubs.
Related is the boats that are putting down storage, get a bad storm, a number of those boats ended up over the storage. That's a major problem.
I remember seeing a 60-footer, 150 feet inland from a river. Put it out on a person's deck.
But to answer your question, we didn't have a seawall here before, so if you place it behind the seawall, I think chances of us losing them are diminished, and they are insured. So we do get, insurance proceeds from the JIF if there's damage.
So when something comes back, we'll include the total estimated cost for capital, construction, infrastructure.
I think
American breakdown of each aspect.
Yeah, and that's good. There's going to be a cost for subdivision, government planning for the engineers, so we'll have to include all of those things. But the prevailing wage aspect, we'll ask Dave and Sean to take a look at for sheds, I guess, whatever you want, cabanas.
Yeah, we can't have the Amish building, they won't fit on.
We got some ideas. You can put in electric and water. You have to set it up and look at risk of injuries and fire.
We went and visited Edgewater, and
That's good.
they have a pretty good process where it's just a 4x4 coming out behind the cabana, and then there's a quick connect to a junction box and the cabana itself. And the water, they have their own showers, but Long Branch has one of those. It's a central shower, one shower that has like 3 or 4 shower heads on it. It's on a big pallet kind of looking thing that, you know, that's where people, so they don't have individual water in the units. It's basically just electric for like the mini fridges and
Phones and laptops. Oh, no, I sell out.
And that's another thing, you know, you may have residents say, I can't get one of these. Every year it goes to everybody from
We could say screw run on electric or solar.
I know a guy, yeah.
All right, we'll come back again.
Actually, you want to speak to the Comcast ordinance?
Well, Rich really gave us a memo on it. It's a D5 in your package. It talks about some of the issues. It's a cable franchise renewal. Chris, it was Chris's life work to get the renewal back from Comcast. But Rich, you want to go through some of your recommended changes?
Yeah, so, there's really only one change we put in the draft, and it was one, Councilman Burkle has brought up, and that's in the draft right there. Councilman Lexington asked a question about, because he had seen, on some publication, that for individual municipalities, there was a special rate. And apparently where that comes from is that municipality must have made a petition or filed a petition with the Board of Public Utilities for a special rate above the normal and show that it was, quote, warranted by expense in the municipality with respect to the regulation or supervision within the territory of the state of Delaware. So for a municipality to get that, you have to go to the board and show that. You already have in this ordinance the higher rate than usual. The typical rate is 2% of the gross revenue coming in municipality. You have 3.5% here, and that apparently kicked in because the provision in the statute that if the Comcast files a certification with the BPU, that cable will serve 60%, that the municipality gets 3.5%, so you already have that in there. So I suppose we can talk to the municipalities that have got a higher rate and see how they did it, but you have to justify it. Yes, that's what I'm saying. In terms of the revision we made, it's on page 4, section 8F. We added this section, the construction requirements section of the ordinance about abandoned wires. Basically saying that if they're installing anything new and they locate their abandoned wires, they have to take it down. That's what's for me.
And the term is again?
The term is 10. Short 10. The duration of the franchise, 10 years. Yep. 10 years.
Richard, I did read through it. Can you translate that in numbers, like what we presently earn from it, what it would be if it was 3.5 versus 2?
Oh, I'm sorry, I don't have those numbers. I don't know what.
We get the franchise check for the January, it's usually around $20,000.
Well, that's the annual cost that they pay us, or?
That's what they send us a check for that.
And I think your previous ordinance, you were in the 2%, right?
So maybe it'll be more.
So right now it's roughly about 20,000 a year at 2%. And if it goes to 3.5, because they cover 60%, it's whatever the number is, 40,000, 38,000.
I guess we can ask them for exact.
Well, we can find that
We're
easy.
married every year.
We have it in our, it's in a revenue, in our budget. I can find that out.
That's good to know, but I just wanted to get the scope of what the number looked like.
Like, the first 7 pages of your budget has all your revenues, and you'll see the cable franchise thing. And you'll see last year's, or the prior years, and then what's anticipated.
So
So
I went from Verizon also.
Probably the next step is when you're satisfied with what you want to request of Comcast. If it's this or if you want more, we should go back to them and say, here's our proposal for what you would do.
obviously, if we can get it, we should probably.
Oh, they put that in there. They put it in. They put 3.5 in. Oh, that's okay, that came from contract, so. That came from their direction.
I would suspect if you wanted to get more than that, we need some
We need to know.
special,
Proofs. Yeah.
special proofs from somebody.
Yeah.
I mean, there are these people that I guess do that, but it's not gonna be that
It's probably
expensive.
cost us more money to get that.
Might.
Approved than what we made, so. In that case, I'm on that. My main thing is to make sure that they can pull down anything over.
Yeah, it's my efforts. They keep, well, that's not all wire. Yes, you know, you're back and forth, I don't know, is this abandoned wire section, is that adequate?
So, I think you're still gonna have that issue if you're gonna deny it. If they're gonna deny it because they're wire, you're still gonna have that issue because the requirement would be that they take down their wires and not everybody's wires. I suppose we could look at it, having them take down everybody's wires, I don't know if we can do that. I thought, though, we talked about that and somebody had identified a way of, I might not remember, but I thought somebody had identified a way to say whose wires are who.
They know that whose wire it is, they know where it is.
Your position, the top is always electric,
Okay.
then there's a pecking order where the highest wire is always the electric companies, and then it goes down, and the last one is usually your cable.
Yes. Yeah. Verizon or how.
So probably.
Verizon is fiber. Verizon is fiber.
It's not a typical coax cable yet.
It's not hard to show you it's only open.
The gentleman that came down that Clifton sent to us, he was very informative. I mean, he knew, and I didn't have a feeling that he was making it up. He said, those are ours, those aren't ours, and, you know, I mean, he was reasonable. I mean,
I think having it in the ordinance, I mean, they, you know, just having it in there, you'll see that go, well, they want us to take it down if we're going to do something. So hopefully they'll do it.
Maybe it's just stay on top of them.
It's an ask. Yeah.
It's not like face-to-face meetings are intent would be a good thing. And if they say none of the towers, that's not an acceptable answer.
somebody has.
If we pull it out.
60% of our people have Comcast here, that's
Well, let's see who this is. Snip, who shows up?
And it's been notified providers, Verizon has always been fiber. It hasn't been our, no, before.
They had copper.
They have copper.
So they may have a lot of crap.
Yeah, but the copper's in a different position also.
And most of their fiber is now underground.
Yeah, but I mean, if you look at it and you say, okay, that's coax cable, it's obviously yours, the answer may not be yes, because it may be somebody's old coax.
Right, I mean, it could be 10, 15 years old.
Right.
It could be a carrier that's no longer in town.
Yeah.
We have pictures of one, just like the rat's nest. I think the representatives at one time, that was PSCG, Mr. Mackey came and he looked at it with his team and they took care of things. So we need a representative.
Yeah.
And they were face to face. Here's the 6 that are bothering us right now. Then we can go from there.
Bob Clifford was pretty receptive, so I'm sure he would send another person down.
So let's
And you said for shared services, of course, that's coming up. So right now we only have basically the same partners we had for a while, which report was the only one you had to review.
Yeah, it's just a hot patch machine that we're doing right now.
No, this is.
Oh, that's the news report, sorry. Sure.
Yeah, Atlantic Islands was going to give us a proposal. Adam left, he left. They didn't give us a proposal. We had talked to Highlands. Highlands was interested when they build their new building. They don't have room for us now. And we've been with Oceanport for a while, and they've been pretty receptive. We have a new boardroom there. I think we keep looking at it, and if one presents itself, but
They're very happy with us.
Our recommendation would be stay another year.
Hey, Joe, if I could just go back to that table.
Sure.
So I think it's important that when we have that agreement, they understand we're on face-to-face to discuss this land cable issue. And in addition to the municipal town experts on it, there are a couple of us on the council who would probably like to be involved in that. But some of us have significant experience in that space, a little bit maybe.
No problem.
I think if we could put some people in it, a special meeting, special discussion, and zero cable or unacceptable answer, it would get traction.
When we have it, I'll be sure to include everything. Jack's been interested, you're interested, John is.
Anyone, so no comments on the shared services motion for report? And then, so Chris, I know you had received all the bids for the viewing platform on Center Street. It's the up access and
Yes. The house from, the bids were really widespread, ranging from about 31,000 to
74 now.
75.
So, the engineer did their due diligence and recommended a low bidder, but,
the owner qualified, right? That's pretty sure.
I would, when you see that kind of spread, it makes you wonder if there's a typo or something with it. But again, I mean, it is what it is.
Who wrote the platform on,
I don't remember the company's name.
Sean, you remember the company?
I don't.
Which I remember even this building and this, I mean, we saw a huge range of bids even on these projects.
Yeah, these big projects, this is a really nice deck. I mean, so, yeah.
That's exactly what I said. That's right. Yeah.
I think if we can, we can try and get somebody from the JIF to review the plan, because one of the questions that came up were young people climbing around these viewing platforms, climbing up on railings, etc. And I remember one of them, this particular way, far this way, you crack your head open. And so maybe we have the JIF review the plan from a safety liability perspective.
Yeah, my layperson wanted to see it with the platforms. I know I can see on my street where it's just the whole bulkhead, and she says, I saw guys waiters walking along the top of the bulkhead. Now, I've got some pictures too, but no, they'll say they sit and stand on top of the bulkhead, even because they got 7 feet high.
What's good, the other thing is to give us a situation like that where county or hand, above that bulkhead, and you can now fish and you have the safety on hand also. I mean, kids are gonna be kids, they're gonna climb, you know. It doesn't matter if you put a 10-foot rail on, kids are afraid to climb it.
But if we have the JIF sign off on it.
Joe, we did meet with the JIF about this at our safety meeting, and Dominic just advised to add signs on the platform, which are installed.
Okay.
About no diving, to take the responsibility off of us.
Okay, that works, yeah. That's an easy fix, there's no sign.
Joe, just a couple quick comments. It would be interesting to know, I know we don't know here who the other ones, if what happened with them, where they stacking the pricing, because they're bidding on experience versus.
Well, the other difference is out-of-line handicap ramp, so it's gonna be a huge difference in number because these don't have that.
They're built, right, they understand. When you see that big of a difference, it's very concerning, because it implies that the bottleneck could be by material, right, between the material labor split. So I would just make sure we're comfortable. I see the note, which was.
Say engineer review.
Chris says the engineer review.
It's either, I think, Seacoast or Winter. I can't remember.
Which I think the prior ones.
Which are both in the 70s.
And that is such a whopping difference. Granted, if they qualify the lowest bidder, that's the way to go.
And we gave them.
Yes.
Yeah, that's what they did on that.
Is it a difference in material? One treks over, you know, treated?
Unless they be EQ, or that you're challenge to.
Yes, this is different than professional services.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you have to go with the
Yeah, that's responsible better. Yeah, of course, clean your house, you like the person will. It's like qualified, yeah, go.
All right.
All right, I'll do a little more, I'll find out exactly who did the last one. let you know.
But that's, otherwise, the engineer signed the bulk as is, that's the recommendation. Yeah.
You good?
Yeah, so Joe, in that case, that action is irrelevant.
No, I understand.
I understand the point. Lowest qualified bidder wins. That's just a little scary.
That's why.
Welcome to building.
What astronaut said that? What astronaut said that? Was it John Glenn?
Yeah. See, the tip of the lowest qualified
Who's saying that from Bolton?
That's what we've been going through for the past 2 years.
Engineer saying that from Bolton.
This one covers. Major, and for all intents and
It
purposes.
was Seacoast, but.
Thank you.
All right, so, let's see. All right. Yeah, that's last quote, thank you.
No, ask him. I'll see who you talk to.
Ordinance, Joe, yes.
Oh, well, it's just a point of information, there's nothing we can do about it. Our current application for FEMA is 1 page. Their new application for residents that need to fill out zoning for their FEMA is 40 pages now that we just
Well, it's just to even lift the HVAC unit.
Yes, to anything that would need a FEMA designation. So our current one and then the proposed, do they all have copies of the proposed one?
No, we don't, it's on the website, 40 pages.
It's 40
Could
pages.
you just send a link to it?
Sure.
So we can always melt
I think in the thing I did send her is the website.
It was just a point of information, there's nothing, again, nothing. It's just, it seems a little conservative.
The engineer that's working with, actually facility engineer, Ken Bullock, so she brought the floodplain manager. We have to do a new ordinance too for this, and, it's gonna take a lot of hours. So it's just a heads up that it will be built for this.
And this is in effect as of June 15th.
We have.
So anybody that applies after June 15th has to go through the process. Yeah. Try to put that next one. If you're raising your hand, they're quick, why is it down?
Yeah, other than just for couple, we have an executive session, but for next week's meeting, Councilman Keeler had asked me to consider, for you guys to consider a resolution honoring Dave Estelle as for his. So well, he's stepping down. I think he's still going to be active and jumping on the rib, but he's out of the leadership role. Yes,
Okay, I'll take it over.
And why would you actually get off the vehicle? Must be like giving up his first born.
As we go to executive session, so unless you're a professional or employee sticking around for executive sessions, this will be the end of the public meetings, not going to take any action afterwards, but if anybody's online or in person. So with that being said, anyone make a motion to enter into the closed session?